Welcome back to Mad Hatter's Civil War History. Today we take a short journey down to Arkansas to take a brief look at the Battle of Prairie Grove. The Battle of Prairie Grove, fought on December 7, 1862, was a somewhat minor engagement during the early years of the American Civil War. This battle took place in Washington County, Arkansas, and while it ended tactically indecisive, it secured Union control of northwestern Arkansas. The Union forces, commanded by General James G. Blunt, were stationed in northwestern Arkansas after their victory at the Battle of Cane Hill on November 28th. The Confederate forces, led by General Thomas E. Heineman, had aimed to attack Blunt's isolated division. However, Blunt was reinforced by two divisions under General Francis J. Huron, prompting Heineman to take a defensive position on high ground known as Prairie Grove. Huron attempted to assault Heineman's lines twice, but both attacks were repelled with heavy casualties. Heineman responded with counterattacks, which were also unsuccessful. Later in the day, Blunt arrived and attacked Heineman's flank. Eventually, both sides disengaged, resulting in an inconclusive battle. However, the lack of reinforcements forced Heineman's army to retreat, giving the Union a strategic victory and control of the region. The Union forces reported 1,251 casualties, including 175 dead, while the Confederate forces reported 1,317 casualties, with 164 to 204 dead. The battle had a demoralizing effect on the Confederate forces, leading to many desertions. Today, most of the battlefield is preserved within Prairie Grove Battlefield State Park. When Thomas Heineman Jr. entered Congress in March of 1858, his reputation as an unapologetic fire-eater was well established across the South, as was his affinity for getting what he wanted. It didn't take long for his new colleagues to learn that, too. He was an irreconcilable man who seemed as if he were perpetually anxious to have a duel, noted Ohio Congressman Samuel Cox. Uncompromising in everything, agreed a friend, Edward Nash. Heineman's resolve and obstinacy would prove both a blessing and a curse once the Civil War began. Elected by Arkansas voters to a second term in 1860, just as several southern states were threatening to secede from the Union, he chose not to serve, and instead began focusing on the defense of his adopted state from his home in Helena. He led recruitment of the 2nd Arkansas Infantry, becoming the regiment's colonel, and in September was promoted to brigadier general. The following April, he was promoted to major general for his contributions at the Battle of Shiloh, a quick ascent for a man with little antebellum military experience. By the fall of 1862, Heineman was in command of the 14,000-man Trans-Mississippi Army, defending southwestern Missouri, the Indian Territory, and most of Arkansas. He had done a commendable job that summer, assembling from scratch an effective, adequately equipped force. But his ruthless tactics, which included declaring martial law and even commandeering soldiers and supplies destined for other theaters, earned him some powerful political enemies and scores of disaffected citizens. It was not Heineman's nature to play it safe. He believed aggressive action was needed to regain territory lost at the Battle of Pea Ridge back in March, as well as in Missouri and the Indian Territory. In late November, he learned that divisions of the Union Army of the Frontier, temporarily under Brigadier General James Blunt's command, were more than 100 miles apart. Blunt was with the 1st Division not far from Maysville, Arkansas, while the 2nd and 3rd Divisions, under Brigadier General Francis J. Huron, were camped near Springfield, Missouri. On December 1st, Heineman began moving toward Blunt from his headquarters at Fort Smith. After defeating Blunt, he planned to proceed back to Little Rock to refit his army and prepare for further operations in Missouri. Blunt soon realized he was in danger and sent word to Huron for relief. In one of the more remarkable achievements of the war, Huron led a forced march of some 115 miles over 3 days to reach the outskirts of Fayetteville the morning of December 7th. Hindman had driven back Federal pickets at Cane Hill the night before and was confident he'd make a quick work of Blunt's outnumbered Kansas division the next day. Though Huron's unexpected approach forced Hindman to alter his plans, he never balked. Now, with his army aligned between the two Federal forces, he would create a diversion for Blunt and strike Huron first. After taking care of Huron, he would repeat the feat on Blunt in the afternoon. Placing a brigade on a ridge opposite Blunt's position at Cane Hill, Hindman had men light extra campfires to give the impression his army was larger than it was. His cavalry, under Major General John S. Marmaduke, began moving at 4 a.m. and made contact with Huron just after daybreak. A quick attack by Colonel Joseph Shelby's troopers created a general panic among Huron's horsemen, with 40 Federals killed and 30 captured. Hindman uncharacteristically hesitated, however. Rather than press the attack, he pulled back and established a defensive position on a nearby ridge. Given the reprieve, Huron quickly brought up 2 infantry regiments and a battery of 12-pounder Napoleons, driving Marmaduke's cavalry 4 miles back to Hindman's main lines. Realizing his precarious situation with the Confederates arrayed between his force and Blunt's, Huron remained aggressive, but he knew he needed Blunt's help, and soon. With both Federal forces engaged, Hindman would no longer have a decided edge in manpower. Fought mostly in a chilly drizzle that froze soldiers' clothes to their body, the battle quickly evolved into a slugfest. Huron's artillery caused considerable damage, but 3 separate Union infantry attacks failed, with devastating casualties. In one of them, the 19th Iowa and the 20th Wisconsin each suffered 50% losses. 4 hours into the battle, his men near the breaking point, Huron began to wonder where Blunt might be. Unsure he'd have anything left should Hindman unleash one more attack. Huron's prayers were answered at 3:15 when Blunt, marching since 10 a.m., finally appeared. The Kansas division's arrival decided the outcome. Blunt quickly ordered an attack on Brigadier General Daniel Frost's division, then withstood a furious counterattack, ultimately benefiting from his army's artillery superiority. The fighting ended at nightfall, but Blunt had expected to resume the following day and had his men sleep on their guns. Hindman, however, low on ammunition and food for his men and horses, retreated overnight, tying blankets around the wheels of his artillery and supply wagons to disguise the withdrawal. Arkansas would be forever lost to the Confederacy, but Hindman continued to fight elsewhere for Southern independence. He was wounded in the neck at Chickamauga in September of 1863, and again in 1864's Atlanta campaign. When the war ended, Hindman chose not to surrender and fled to Mexico, living in exile until 1867. Thanks for watching this episode of Mad Hatter's Civil War History. Like, follow, and click the bell for notifications to ensure you see all of the latest content. As always, let me know if there's any other important events of the American Civil War you would like me to address.